Hey everybody, I'm Jeff, and this is a Longplay demo of the beta 0.9.1 of a game I'm working on called Deep Void Mining Operations, or DVMO. I'm using the Godot game engine, which I like quite a bit, but games like this could be made in just about any good modern engine. So let's get into it. DVMO is a space mining simulator where the point of the game, at least in these early betas, is to develop and optimize a series of mining ships and mining operations. The basic ideas are that you have a few different ship types. The most important one is the miner, which is this one that's highlighted in green since I've clicked on it. And its job is to go from this square here, which is a depot, out to asteroids, collect some ore, and then bring it back to the depot. That's all that miners do. This other ship that's behind the depot, it's called a hauler. The job of the hauler is to take ore that's been stored in the depot and take it to the market to sell it for cash. You use that cash to buy more ships, of course. A little overview of the UI here. In the upper left, I've got my current amount of money, which is 500 credits. I've got the number of ships that I have. Right at the top is the miners, so I have one miner. Next to that is the hauler, one hauler. This is a tugboat, which I'll explain later. I don't have any of those yet. And this icon is the number of depots that I have, which is only just this one. But you can expand your operations by buying more depots. So the first thing I want to do in order to mine things faster is to buy more miners. So the way you do that, anytime you want to buy a ship, you first have to select the depot that you want to associate the ship to. So I'm going to click on this depot here. And then miners cost 150 credits each, and I have 500. So I'm going to buy 3 of these, which would leave me with 50 credits. So you'll see more miners showed up. When the miner is heading from the depot to the asteroid, you'll notice that it turns yellow. This is just a visual indicator so that you know which asteroids are occupied by certain ships and which ones are not. So these miners are working along, adding ore into this depot, and you just notice that the hauler started to turn. Well, the hauler is full, and it's going to take all of its cargo to the market and sell it. One thing that may not be obvious, just from watching the game here, is that miners move 1 unit of ore, or 1 ton of ore, from asteroids to the depot. Asteroids have a certain amount of ore in them, which you can see in this graph. This is this is a bug. This graph should not be labeled efficiency. This is actually the amount of ore left in this asteroid. But when this chart drops to 0, you'll see that this asteroid here will disappear. That's going to take another minute or 2 to happen, so I'm going to move on. Our hauler just came back from the market. You'll notice that our money has gone up. So I now have 200 credits, so I can afford to buy another miner. Oh, but I made a mistake. I have to select a depot first, so click on the depot, buy the miner, and there we go. The hauler has already filled up its cargo hold, and it's headed back to the market again. Let's follow the hauler and see where it goes. I'm going to zoom out and follow along here. Hauler doesn't have very far to go in this case. This is the market, or at least this is the icon for the market right now. What the hauler does is it goes between depots, picks up cargo from the depots, and takes it to the market and sells it. You make 10 credits for every ton of ore that you sell at the market. And like I mentioned, miners hold 1 unit of ore. Haulers can take 15. So if I sell 15 units of ore for 10 credits each, then I'll get 150 credits for every time that this hauler goes to the market. So let's buy one more hauler. Oh, one more miner, I mean. So next I want to draw your attention to the depot itself. So I've selected it here. And I should say all these charts and graphs are very early development. They're probably going to change. Well, they're definitely going to change. They're a little rough around the edges, but they do tell you some basic information that can be useful. And the first thing I want you to notice is that the depot has a chart when you select it that shows you the tonnage, meaning the tons of ore that are in this depot right now. The vertical axis goes from 0 at the bottom to the maximum amount that the depot can hold. And the horizontal axis is time. So over here on the left is 10 minutes ago. The far right bar is the current minute. And you can always tell when this stuff is going to tick over because there's a game clock up here. So I've been playing this game already for almost 6 minutes. I want you to keep an eye on this clock for the next several seconds. And when this reaches 6 minutes, you'll see this chart move over 1 bar. There you go. So that's how this chart works. That's how all the charts work, basically. The thing I want to point out to you is that, and I'm going to turn the sound effects off here for a second. The thing I want to point out is that over time, the amount of ore that's in this depot is going up, minute over minute. That means that the miners are bringing more ore into the depot than the hauler is taking out. Now, there's a balance to these things. You want to have a certain ratio of miners to haulers. And I'm still tweaking these numbers, but right now it's about 4 to 5 miners per hauler will get you to kind of an equilibrium state so that the haulers are always busy taking ore from the depot to the market, but they never really run out. You know, the haulers aren't sitting around waiting. The only time they're waiting at the depot is when they're spending time loading ore onto the hauler. So right now I have 6 miners and 1 hauler, and I said that the ideal ratio is somewhere between 4 and 5 right now, which is why the depot is gaining more tonnage over time than it's sending out. So what we're going to do next is sell a ship. So I don't actually need this many ships. So I'm going to click on a ship that's heading away from the depot on its way to an asteroid, and I'm going to hit the X key, which sells it. Now you may notice that this says 135, but when I bought a miner, you may remember that it cost 150. That's because when you sell ships or any other resource in the game, you only get 90% of the purchase price back in terms of credits. So it's just something to keep in mind. It's a way to make sure that you're not buying and selling things all the time, and yet it's not too much of a punishment if you accidentally buy something you didn't mean to. You can just sell it back right away. So let's zoom out a little bit and take a look at how this situation's evolving around this depot. You may have noticed that the miners have cleared away several of the asteroids that are nearest to the depot. This means a couple of things. One, the miners are going to have to go further and further away over time in order to get ore from asteroids. This is going to decrease their efficiency. They're going to spend less time, less percentage of their time mining, and more time traveling. The mining and the fetching of the ore, that's ultimately the contribution that the miners make to the economic engine that you're trying to build. So you don't want them, traveling too much. You don't want them traveling too far. You want to try to optimize their time and just get them focused on just making short trips between the depot and asteroids and bringing ore in as quickly as possible. The way that you mitigate this and make sure that the miners can stay efficient over time is through a tugboat. That's the third type of ship here that I mentioned earlier that I'll explain shortly. Tugboats cost 850 credits, which I don't yet have, but a hauler just went to market, so very soon I should have 850 credits, and when I do, I'm going to buy one. There we go. So I'm going to add a tugboat. I've got my depot selected. Here's my tugboat. Let's zoom in on it. So it's chosen an asteroid that it's going to go to, and it's turning toward that asteroid right now, and once it's turned far enough, it'll turn its engines on and start heading in that direction. I think it's heading for this asteroid right here. See, this is a nice full asteroid. It's got all of its ore still in it. What the tugboat's going to do is that, imagine that there's kind of an invisible circle around the depot. And that circle represents how far you want the miners to travel. And ideally, you don't want the miners to travel too much further than that. It's just kind of a waste of time for the miners. You can tell because our tonnage is still going up for the most part, but it's starting to flatten out a little bit. I haven't bought well, I did sell one of the miners, so that contributed to it. But the miners are also having to go further away, and so this, over time, this chart, if I didn't do anything to optimize and get the asteroids closer to the depot, this chart would reach a peak and then start to drop down as the miners had to go further and further away. What this tugboat is going to do is it's just going to autonomously go out, pick up an asteroid, and bring it closer. And what you'll see over time is if the tugboat pulls asteroids in faster than the miners can mine them, you'll kind of see the tugboat line up the asteroids in kind of a ring shape. It's going to take quite a while to see that pattern, so let's talk about what's next. This is a fine operation, and for now, the depot is nearing equilibrium. We've got 5 miners to 1 hauler. We've also got a tugboat helping out. But what if we want to do more? Well, let's zoom out and look at the whole playfield in this beta right now. There's only one level in the beta, and so this is the sort of donut world. So this is the maximum zoom out. The market is at the center. This is where the hauler is going when it goes from the depot. It's flying over to this market here. And this is where it sells the ore. And that's how you get money. The asteroids in this level are just arranged in a kind of giant donut around the market. That was just a convenient shape for testing this early stage of the game. So what if I want to expand, right? Because I could have this tugboat, and maybe I could buy more tugboats, and eventually, very slowly over time, pull all of these asteroids over to this depot so that the miners can mine it. But why have just one set of miners and one hauler and one tugboat? We can buy more depots, and we can buy more of everything if we have the money. So that's my plan here. So let's click on the depot again. You'll see that the tonnage in this depot has remained really close to flat. This is... oh, I didn't mean to unclick that. This is a really good thing. So this is the equilibrium I was talking about, the ratio of about 4 or 5 miners to 1 hauler. When you have the income, or I should say the rates of ore coming in and the rate of ore going out of the depot, about even, you're going to see that the depot is going to remain at about the same level of full all the time. And that's what you want. That's an efficient use of the depot. So the next thing to do, I've kind of got this little package of ships going here. I'm going to turn... Oh, the sound effects are off. I forgot that I turned them off. I'm also going to turn the music off for just a second. And just let you hear... well, I guess nothing. I guess that wouldn't be that interesting. Never mind. What we want to do next is expand to another depot. I'm probably going to put that depot about here, somewhere around the middle or so, maybe a little bit closer than the middle of this asteroid field here. I'm going to put it on the opposite side of the market from where the current depot is, so that they're not competing for resources. I need, I think, 1,200 credits. Yeah, I need 1,200 credits to buy a depot. So I'm going to turn the sound effects back on here and zoom in a little bit and just let you watch for a few minutes until I have 1,200 credits. And you can just kind of watch what's going on and think about what's happening. Think about this equilibrium state we've set up. This tonnage is starting to creep up a little bit, so maybe I'll sell another miner. I don't know. We'll see. But just watch how this stuff works and think about, as this tugboat is pulling asteroids in, how it's contributing to making sure that the miners don't need to go very far to get their ore. Alright, so we almost have enough money for our depot, which is 1,200 credits. The next time this hauler goes to market, which will be in a few seconds here, we should have enough to place our next depot. I would say that these miners and these tugboats are doing a pretty good job because they don't have to go very far. You can start to see this kind of ring shape. You see how the asteroids are all about the same distance from the depot. These inner asteroids that the tugboat has brought over. And for the most part, except for this miner over here, all the miners have an asteroid to work on that's nearby. So this is not really a problem. The amount of tonnage in this depot is still kind of creeping up. So I am going to sell one of these miners so that that situation stops. So I'm just going to select a miner and hit the X key. And then I'm also going to... Well, I guess that's it for now. We have enough money to build our depot, so let's do that first, and then I'll show you some more controls. So right now, we have, I don't know, 150 credits or so every maybe minute, something like that. It's about how often this hauler is going to market. So by just replicating this setup, 4 miners, 1 hauler, 1 tugboat, we can do exactly the same thing on the other side of the map. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to go here. I'm going to click on adding a depot. You'll notice that my mouse cursor changed to the depot icon. And I'm going to place it right about here. So now I have a new depot. There are no ships assigned to it. The ships that I already have on the other side of the map are going to stay just where they are. And they're going to keep working with this depot exclusively. So let's go to our new depot. We'll come back to our old depot in a little while. I have a little bit of money. I have enough for 2 miners, or I could wait just a little bit and buy 1 hauler. I think what I'll do instead is buy 1 miner and get it going, and then wait until I have 400 credits. And when that happens, I'll buy my second hauler for this depot. While I'm waiting for that, I'll show you another feature of the game. So, for the most part, this is all autonomous. You just kind of observe it. You look at these charts to see how efficiency stuff is going. You just keep an eye on things. You try to reach a nice balance, a nice equilibrium. And you don't intervene in the lives of the ships too much, but you can. So you notice this miner is headed toward this yellow asteroid, but I can tell it to go over here instead by right-clicking. So if I have the miner selected, so if I click over here, the miner will get deselected. But if I click on the miner, it'll turn green again. You'll see that the miner will choose an asteroid, and if I say, no, I want you to go over here instead, by right-clicking on that asteroid, it'll switch, and then I can say, oh, I changed my mind. Go over here. No, wait. Go over here. And you can do this as much as you want. Of course, messing around with the miner in this way doesn't really help the miner. It wastes a lot of the miner's time. So I just wanted to show you how that worked. You can do the same thing with haulers. You can reassign a hauler from one depot to another. And you can also reassign a tugboat from one depot to another, as well as tell the tugboat to go work on a different asteroid. So I see our other hauler is just now reaching the market. It looks like it cashed in its ore. I have enough money for another hauler over here, so I'm going to add one. I almost have enough for another miner, but not quite yet. So this is the first time this hauler has come to this depot, and we only have 1 miner servicing it. So notice the tonnage. As soon as this hauler docks, you'll see this pretty much drop to 0. And that's, again, because of that equilibrium we were talking about, of about 4 to 5 miners per hauler. And right now we only have 1. So this hauler is going to sit here until it's full, until it has 15 tons of ore. And you can imagine that that's going to take a long time if it's just the 1 miner. So I'm going to add a few more miners as soon as cash starts to come in from the other hauler. And we'll build this up to 4 miners, maybe 5. And then we'll add a tugboat as well. So let's just kind of sit back. I'm going to turn the sound effects back on and my microphone off. So you can just kind of listen to what's going on. Alright, so here we can see that the tonnage at this one, now that we've reduced the number of miners here to just 4, that the tonnage is pretty much leveled off. It's still pretty high. It's probably about 65 or 70%. There is a bug in this build where the miners can actually put an infinite amount of tonnage in this depot. But the chart is supposed to represent, 0 to maximum. When I fix that, what will happen is when the depot fills up, then the miners will still be associated with this depot, but they'll just stop working. And because this is like an efficiency game, kind of an optimization game, you'll get some kind of message in the UI saying that the miners are idle, or you'll get some kind of indication that the miners don't have any work to do. Or maybe you'll just be looking at this depot and noticing that the miners are kind of sitting around not doing a whole lot. Alright, so we only have 2 miners over here. Let's add 2 more. So we've got the money for that now. That should get this depot going pretty well. And we should start to see the tonnage in this depot climb a little bit. Actually, I think I'm going to increase this to 1 more. I'm going to have 5 miners over here, just like I had at the other depot in the beginning. I'm going to do that so that I can build up the tonnage a little bit, and then I'll drop it back down to 4 miners. That way, every time that the hauler comes to this depot, it'll always have more than enough ore to take to market. But we'll also be reaching a kind of happy equilibrium point where the miners always have something to do and the haulers always have something to do, and nobody's waiting on anyone else. So I'm going to turn the sound effects back on and turn my microphone off. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to save up some money because I want to buy another tugboat for this depot. And I want to build up the tonnage in this depot. So I'm going to wait for at least one of those 2 goals to happen. And then I'll come back. So I'll see you probably in about 2 or 3 minutes, maybe less. Alright, so I'm back. So things are heading in the right direction. The tonnage in this newer depot over here is climbing, which is what I would like. And the tonnage in our older depot is still, you know, it's staying within a certain range, which is good. But it's still a little bit high. I'd like it to be a little bit closer to the medium range. You might wonder why. Honestly, it's I just like it to be in the medium range. It is staying within a range, so it's not really a problem. But I just liked it to be kind of, you know, kind of close to the middle. So I'm going to show you another feature. So I have been buying and selling miners as needed to manage the flow of ore coming into the depot, but I don't actually have to do that. I could just stop one of the miners, so that's what I'm going to do here. So the next time this miner goes and comes back to the depot, I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to stop it. So what I did here, and this is not yet reflected in the UI, but I just tapped the backtick or the tilde key, which is the key right underneath the escape key on most keyboards, up in the top left corner. And what that did is it just told this ship to stop what it was doing and stop moving. What that'll do is that ship is just going to hang out there as long as I want it to, but it will slow the rate of ore going into this depot just enough that this tonnage chart will start to go down. And when it gets down to about the range I want, I'll tell this ship to restart and go back to work. For now, we almost have enough money for our next depot, which is 1,200 credits. So I'm going to zoom out and go find a place to place that depot. It looks like both of our haulers are about to head to market. This one's a little bit ahead. So in a few seconds, we're going to have our 1,200 credits that we need. And I think I'm going to just build the next depot, I don't know, over here somewhere, I guess. I guess I could buy a tugboat for this side. I meant to do that, and I kind of forgot. But these miners haven't really eliminated too many asteroids yet, so I'm not too worried. I'm going to let them keep going for a while before I buy them a tugboat to help them out. So let's zoom in over here just a little bit. Let me go to my depot adding icon here. And I'm going to add a depot about here. I don't want to put it... I could put it right on top of the asteroid, which you might think would make the trips to and from the asteroid really quick. But because the ships have to both accelerate and decelerate, if you put it too close, they'll actually kind of just crawl and go really slow. So I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to place the depot, I think here might be okay. Maybe a little closer to the market, so like maybe here. I've got a little money, so I'm going to select this depot and I'm going to add a miner. And for now, that's all the money I have. Well, I'm actually about to get a little bit more, so maybe I'll buy one more. And I actually, okay, as I say that, I see the other hauler coming in, so we're going to get one more still. Okay. That was cool timing. So I've got 3 miners over here. I want to get to 4. But I'm not going to buy the 4th one. I'm going to reuse one of the miners I already have. So let's check on our other 2 depots first. Here you'll see, let's wait for this hauler to take its load from the depot. And you can see that this chart is starting to trend down, which is what I'd like. I think this is good enough for now, so I'm going to select this stopped ship, and I'm going to press that backtick key to tell it to restart. And it's just going to keep right on doing what it was doing before, which was taking ore to and from the depot. So I'm pretty happy with where this depot is. The equilibrium is working, the tugboat's doing its job. This depot could maybe use a second tugboat, just because it's, tugboats are really slow, but they're quite effective. I just don't really want to spend the extra 850 credits right now. So instead what I'm going to do is focus on this depot. This depot has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 miners working on it, and you can see that its tonnage is trending up. So I don't really need you know, 5 miners here. So I'm gonna select a ship. I'm gonna say this one after it drops off its ore. It's gonna turn around. It's gonna come over here, and I'm gonna stop it. So you stopped it with that backtick key. And I've got 3 miners over here, so I could use a 4th. So I'm gonna change this miner and send it over to the other place. First thing I'm gonna do is this miner was on its way to this asteroid right here. So I'm first gonna right-click this asteroid up here, which removes the targeting from this asteroid to this one. That miner is gonna go over here, but you'll notice all I've done is reassign the asteroid. I haven't changed which depot that this ship is associated with. So it's going to turn around and go back to that old depot because that's the one I told it to go to. So I'm going to stop that ship again. Go over to my new depot and right click on that depot. And you'll see ship reassigned to depot. And then you'll see that miner will come from the bottom of the screen here. The one that I pulled over from the other depot here in a few seconds, and it'll start working with this depot instead. Oh, but I have to restart it, that's right. I stopped the ship, so you always have to go back and restart a ship. So now I've restarted the ship, and now it's associated with this depot here. It's been long enough now, I've got at least 400 credits, so I'm going to buy a hauler for this depot. Because we're right about at the midway point, which is perfect. This hauler will start taking ore from this depot to market. And this 4-to-1 ratio should create a nice equilibrium for this depot. This is my newest depot. It's still got a handful of asteroids that are pretty close. So I think this depot is going to be fine for a little while. And now I've got 3 haulers, all bringing ore to the market about every minute or so. So now I have about 3 times the income per minute as I did at the very beginning of the game, which is great. We're making progress. This depot has started to eat away at the asteroids, the miners here at this depot. And this curve is starting to flatten out, and given another 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, it would start to dip down. So I think it's about time that we buy a tugboat for this second depot. I'm just waiting on another 30 credits. And when that happens, which should be soon, because this hauler's headed back, and I'm sure there's at least one more hauler headed to the market right now, we'll have enough credits to buy a tugboat for this depot here. So, like we've seen before, you just need to select the depot where you want the ship to work. And then you buy the ship. But just to show that reassignments work everywhere, I'm going to select our first depot. I'm going to buy the tugboat here. You'll see it shows up here. And it's going to head to this asteroid. Well, that doesn't really work for me, right? Because what I really want is for this tugboat to be associated with the other one. And if I don't do anything, what this tugboat's going to do is take this asteroid here to somewhere around here. So first I'm going to hit the backtick key to stop the tugboat. Just going to bring it to a stop. And so it's just going to sit there until I give it another command. So first thing I want to do is say, hey, you know, I know that you're collecting asteroids near that depot, but really I want you to work with this depot over here instead. So I'm going to right click on that. It'll say ship reassigned to depot. Now the tugboat's still not moving because it's stopped. But now it's associated with this depot. That's great. So now I'm going to right click on this asteroid. Ship it reassigned to asteroid. So now we have that new tugboat assigned to this asteroid and this depot. Now if I just press the toggle key to restart that ship, it should be on its way back over. So let's take a look. Make sure it's coming over. Looks like... oh, it might have been in a weird state. I might have hit the stop and restart more than I meant to. Here it's turning around. And here it comes. So it's already accelerated to its maximum speed, which tugboats do not move quickly. So it's just going to drift until it gets all the way over here. And when it does, it's going to pull this asteroid in toward this depot. And because it's associated with this depot, it's just going to keep working for this depot until I tell it to do otherwise. So that's going to take quite a while. You can see, here's our tugboat. It's got a long way to go and it's not very fast moving. But that's the life of tugboats. We almost, in fact, here in a few seconds, we're going to have enough money for yet another tugboat. I think I'm going to go with that. So we've got 3 times the income that we had at the beginning of the game in terms of income per minute. And so it hasn't taken very long to get the money to buy a third tugboat for this depot. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to select this depot, and this time I'm going to do it right. I'm going to select this depot first, buy the tugboat here. That way it's already associated with the right depot, and this tugboat doesn't have to travel very far. Just to give you an idea, I'll bet that tugboat is still traveling to the asteroid. It's just about arrived. It's locked onto that asteroid. Now it's going to start actually doing useful work. Let's check in on how our depots are doing with their equilibrium here. This is our original depot. You can see it's kind of got like a sawtooth pattern in its tonnage. That's fine. It's still staying within a range for the most part, so I'm not too worried. What about our second depot? About the same. It seems to be going down slightly. I might add another miner here. Make sure I just have this depot selected. I'm going to click on the add miner. You'll notice this tooltip here, it has the number 1 in square brackets. That's the keyboard shortcut. So instead of clicking the plus button, I could just press the 1 key. The keyboard shortcut for haulers is 2, tugs are 3, and depots are 4. Now that might change if you play this game later. Much later, these keyboard configs might change, and but that's what they are right now, and that's what those numbers mean. So just to show you that working, I'm going to leave this depot selected, and just keep your eye on this number 12 here. I'm going to press the 1 key, and I'll get an extra miner at this depot. You'll see it show up. There it is. This one right here. And it just increased to 13, and you saw the add miner message. So you can use the keyboard if you want. If you want to know what the keyboard shortcuts are, you just hover over these pluses. I'll tell you what the keys are. That's only for buying ships. The keyboard tips that are not here are X. You press the X key to sell something, and you press the backtick or tilde key next to the escape key to stop a ship. Well, things are going pretty well. We're 42 minutes into the game. We're relaxed, having a good time mining. And now that we've got all this income going, we've already got enough money for a 4th depot, which, of course, I'm going to place about equidistant to the market as the other ones. So we know that we have keyboard shortcuts, and we know that the keyboard shortcut for adding a depot is the number 4. So I'm going to press the 4 key. Oh, I don't have enough money yet. Haha. Yeah, I was thinking that depots cost 1,100 or 1,000. I forgot, of course. They cost 1,200. So here in a few seconds, we're going to have another 300 credits from these 2 haulers coming into the market here. So now we have enough money. So I'm going to press the 4 key, and I'm going to try to place this about the same place. So you notice vertically this depot's here, and horizontally this depot's here. And I want the depots to all be about the same distance from the market. Now, why would I want that? The reason is because I've been able to set these up with an equilibrium of about the same amount of ore coming in as going out. And one of the keys to that is not only making sure that the miners have what they need, it's also the turnaround time for that is based on how long it takes the haulers to get from the depot to the market. So I'm going to place my new depot right around here. Before we got a little money, so I'm going to buy a hauler first. I don't know why. It doesn't do any good because they don't have anything to haul yet. But as soon as some more money comes in, I will buy some more miners. Actually, you know what? We have 5 miners is it at this depot? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. And the tonnage is leveling out. It's probably fine. So I'm actually going to stop this ship and move it over here. So I'm going to tell it to work on this asteroid instead. Oops, I made a mistake. I accidentally deselected the ship. So I'm going to select the ship again, tell it to go to this asteroid, and then I'm going to also right-click on the depot so that that ship, that miner is associated with this depot. So it'll keep going back and forth here instead of going from this asteroid all the way back over here. Now we do have a little bit more money. I can buy, looks like 3 more miners. So I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3 real quick with my keyboard shortcuts. That's going to bring this depot up to 4 miners, which is where we want to have it. And you can see we have 16 total. So we've got everything pretty balanced right now. We've got 4 haulers at 4 depots. We've got 4 miners per hauler for a total of 16. We've only got 3 tugboats because I haven't bought the tugboat for the 4th depot yet. The 4th depot and the tugboat's probably my next purchase. After that, I'm going to start expanding a little bit more. I think I might... it depends on how this goes. Things are getting really sparse at our original depot. You see this tugboat can't really keep up. The miners are still having to go a fair distance in order to get ore. If you look at the tonnage, it's still fine. It's still sitting at a good place. But the miners are having to go further away because the tugboat has to go further away to get asteroids to bring it in. So now the tugboat can't keep up with the rate at which the miners are using up the current asteroids. Not to mention the tugboat is, it can only pull things in so quickly, and if it has to go further, then it's just going to take longer and longer to pull in each additional asteroid. Now, there's nothing too bad right now. These 3 asteroids are actually close enough that the tugboat's going to leave them alone, but they're far enough away that they're actually a little bit further than these 2 here. So what I'm going to do is manually select this tugboat and say, hey, I actually want you to go get this asteroid, which is pretty close, but not as close as I would like. So by doing that, I'm just going to force this tugboat to just pull this asteroid in just a little bit closer, and you'll see it'll just bring it in to this ring, this imaginary circle that's around the depot that represents where the tugboat drops off asteroids. I'm going to wait for this tugboat to finish that particular job, and then when it's done, I'm going to tell it to bring in this asteroid as well. This of these 2 remaining ones that are kind of close but not super close, this is the one that's further away. So I'm going to select this tugboat and say, hey, I'd actually like you to come over here and do this one. And once it's done that one, it's going to go back to its normal autonomous behavior. So from there, once it brings this one in, it will either start going out over here again, or because it's working on this side of the depot, it might decide to go over here. While that's happening, let's first check in with our other depots, and then I'm going to see if it's time to buy the 4th tugboat for my 4th depot. So our first depot, tonnage is looking good, staying within a good range over time. Check on this depot here. Pretty much the same. Things are looking good. We should see another bump up. We've been seeing like a sawtooth kind of shape, and so this should be the minute where it bumps up to the top and then starts diving down again. So we'll come back to that in a second. Check on this depot. Slightly different shape and may be trending down a little bit. It's a little bit hard to tell. Or maybe it's a bigger sawtooth that takes longer. But still staying within a range. Like I said, these charts are 1 minute per bar, and the charts currently show the last 10 minutes. So over the last 10 minutes, if something is pretty stable, for the most part, you can trust that it's going to be pretty stable. You probably won't need to check in on it again for at least a few minutes. But I like to check in on these things every few minutes just to make sure. And finally, our final depot here. It's looking good. It's actually climbing in its tonnage just a little bit. That's because I believe this is the newest depot that I just placed. It's pretty close to the market, but it also still has nice, young, fresh asteroids that still need to be mined, and the miners don't have to go very far. But before anything else happens, I think I'm going to buy a tugboat for this depot. Make sure that depot's selected, and I'm going to use my keyboard shortcut this time. Just hit the 3 key, and there's my tug. You may have noticed that this asteroid here lit up right away. I noticed that, so I'm pretty confident that this is the asteroid that that particular tugboat is heading for. Let's zoom out. From this vantage point, I can see everything that's going on. I've got 4 equilibrium depots going. I've got 4 miners per depot, 4 haulers, 4 tugboats, and 4 depots total. That's pretty good. I'd like to expand a little bit. I'm going to talk about a couple of things. First of all, I've got a fair amount of money going on, so if I wanted to build a whole new base with 4 miners, a depot, and a hauler right away, I'm not sure exactly how much that would be off the top of my head, but this is probably enough to do a whole nother setup. But at this phase in the game, the next thing for me to think about is if I really want to add another depot, and if so, where. You might wonder what the trade-offs are between adding another depot and not. The main trade-offs are, if you add more depots, you will wind up mining all of these asteroids in less total time. However, doing that, it just makes the game end faster, which may be your goal. Maybe you want to do it as quickly as possible. But the flip side of that is the more you spend, the less efficient you'll be monetarily. Because the more money you spend, the less money you're saving for just the slow, steady operation. My goal with this game, this DVMO, is to hopefully have you be able to play one of 3 ways. You can try to spend every dime that you have and max out the number of ships and just watch them do their thing and mine every last asteroid as quickly as possible and just scavenge everything fast, So in that mode, what you'd be trying to do is complete this entire level, mine all these asteroids in the least amount of time possible. That's one way to play. Another way to play is to be cheap and not buy anything more than you absolutely need to. With that mode, really what you could have done is just have this one depot, the 4 miners, the 1 hauler, and then 1 tugboat for a long time. And then when that tugboat had to start going too far to get stuff, you could sell this depot and build another one somewhere else. And that way, that would take the longest amount of time to clear out everything, because you don't have that many miners trying to clear out this whole asteroid field. But it would also be the most economical way to do it, because you're buying the least number of ships and the least number of resources you need to actually do things. So that's the cheap way to play. And if you want to play for economic efficiency, that's an interesting way to play. So we've got fastest mining time, we've got least expensive way to mine, and then we've got sort of the efficient way, which is kind of a balance between the two. It doesn't mine too fast, but it's not afraid to spend a little money. And what you're trying to do there is optimize the amount of money you make per unit of time or per minute. When I get to the end of this game, you'll see there will be a game over screen that will summarize your score for the level. And it'll give you all these metrics, so you can decide how you want to play. Do you want to minimize the time? Do you want to play as cheaply as possible and make the get the highest score, or do you want to get the highest number of points per minute? I like to kind of play a little efficient, but a little on the slow side, because this game for me it's very chill out and kind of relaxing and stuff. It's kind of why I've designed it to be slow going. I've been talking over the game here for like the last 2 or 3 minutes without doing anything. And that's totally okay in this game. You can just kind of chill out. I mean, there's a clock, but you're not trying to shave a few tenths of a second off this clock. It's just a clock. It's just letting you know how long you've been here watching this video or how long I've been playing. And it's just there as another piece of information. It's not something to really concern yourself with. It's just you can use it to optimize in whatever direction you like, or you can totally ignore it. So now I've talked through the different ways to play. I'm starting to gain money here. So if I wanted to, this is a fairly efficient way to run this. If I wanted to stop here and just say, okay, from this point forward in this level, I'm just going to play the cheap economic way, I would do nothing. I would walk away. I'd go, make a sandwich, drink some coffee or something, and just let the game finish until it got to the game over screen where the end of the level was reached. But I am going to expand a little bit. I'm going to show you a little bit more about what it means when a depot kind of reaches what I would call its end of life. When I say end of life, what I mean is that this setup, this equilibrium of like 4 miners, 1 hauler, 1 tugboat, it's kind of reached the limit of its effectiveness. And that happens when the tugboat basically just has to go way too far to continue pulling in asteroids. And there's just no point in continuing to run it, because the only way to keep this going is to buy more haulers. But haulers are the most expensive ships in the game right now, and that's just not that efficient. So we're not playing where we're spending a lot of money. We're trying to be, strike a balance. So pretty soon, this depot's kind of, and their miners are kind of going to run out of things to do, because this tugboat's just going to have to go too far to get asteroids after it pulls a few more over. When that happens, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these ships and reassign them all to some other depot. And then just kind of leave this space empty. But it's going to take several more minutes to do that. But that's just a little preview of where I'm going. So let's just check in our depots. This one's still trucking along, right in the middle. That sawtooth pattern, just like I like. It does look like it's maybe getting a little less efficient, because it is starting to curve down slightly more than it was before. But it's a small thing. It's going to take several minutes to really change much, so I wouldn't worry about it just yet. This depot, a little bit below the halfway point, but also fine. So there's, again, there's 2 ways to kind of get this chart to move. If you want it to move up, you can either add miners so that you're pulling ore in faster, or I could just stop the ship, the hauler, and tell it to just hang out for, a minute or so. And when it does that, it won't be taking stuff to the market, which means the miners will have a little bit more time to build up their reserves here. Now, economically, in terms of earning the most money per minute of the game, that's probably not the best way to play, because basically what I'm doing here is slowing down the amount of income I'm making per minute, and that's not, well, that may or may not be the way you want to play, but it's not the way I'm trying to play here. I'm just demonstrating what's going on. But I'm going to let this build up a little bit more, and in the meantime, I'm going to explain this chart that you see when you click on a ship. This chart, you've seen it anytime I click on any ship at all. And it looks a little bit different. Miners mostly look like this. They have like a little bit of this brightness and then some dimmer parts up here, but it's mostly dim. And they all look about the same. They have a little bit of bright and mostly this gray. haulers look different. They have they have more time where they have this bright color, a higher percentage of the time where they have this bright color, but it also kind of goes up and down depending on what they're doing. So this depot has enough tonnage now. I'm going to restart this ship. And when I do, when you see the thrusters turn back on in this ship, I want you to notice what's changing in this chart. And before I do that, I'll explain what you're seeing right now. So from the brightest to the darkest represents what percentage of this hauler's time has been spent on different tasks. The brightest stuff is the most economically valuable, and the darkest stuff is the least economically valuable. Now, for the last couple of minutes, it's just been sitting here doing nothing, which is why the chart has gone completely dark. This hauler is not performing any economically useful activity at the moment. So when I restart it, you'll see that the darker gray starts to show up. And when the hauler arrives at the depot, this green hauler, you'll see that it'll start to get a little bit of brightness. So I'm going to explain what these colors mean. Like I said, the brightest stuff represents the most economically valuable activity, and the darker it goes, the less valuable that activity is. The bright color represents direct economic work. So in the case of a hauler, that means either picking up ore from a depot or dropping it off at a market. Those are the two things that most significantly contribute to the economic value that the hauler provides. And you'll see when it got to the depot here, it started to gather some more brightness here. Now you're probably wondering, like, wait, why did the brightness go high and why is it going back down low again? That's because this chart doesn't show total time. What it shows is percentage time. So again, these charts, they represent 10 minutes of history, with the bar on the far right being the current minute, which is why it's the only one that's changing. And the 9 bars to the left are the previous 9 minutes. The reason why this current bar goes both up and down is because you're seeing this is a stacked 100% chart, meaning that it's not the total time, it's the percentage time. So right now, the minute just ticked over. We just started a new minute, and this hauler has spent 100% of this minute so far just traveling. Just traveling between the market and the depot, either turning or thrusting. Once it arrives at this depot, you'll see that it'll start doing useful economic work. And then when it fills up with ore and starts to turn back, you'll see that there's more travel time being added, so that the total percentage of the time that this hauler is spending doing high value work is going down. So I hope that makes sense. That's how this chart works, and that's why it looks the way that it does. So we spent several minutes neglecting most of everything. Let's zoom all the way out. We've still got our ratios of 4 to 1 to 1 to 1. Miners to haulers to tugs to depots. And I'm curious right now, I'm most curious about this hauler right here. Or sorry, this depot right here. I would have thought that the efficiency of this depot would have really started to decline noticeably, but I'm not sure that it has. I mean, maybe it's kind of trending down because this peak here is lower than the previous peak. So, yeah, it might still be declining, but it's going to take probably another 20 or 30 minutes before this chart reaches, the bottom at this rate. So let's give it a little more time. This tugboat's still pulling in asteroids from the edge here, and it can probably still pull in at least 4 asteroids, maybe a 5th one. I'm not sure. Yeah, these are 3 different asteroids here. And then it's got the one that it's currently moving over, and one more here. So we've got 5 asteroids worth of work that this hauler can still usefully do. And then the game crashed. Well, that's beta software for you. I hit the wrong key. I think I hit the X key, which would have tried to sell that hauler, which technically should have worked. I'm not sure why that crashed. It's kind of funny. So I'll write that down and fix that bug. In the meantime, I'm going to show you something else. So this is what the game over screen would look like if I actually got all the way to it. I'm sorry, you won't be able to see the end of that game, but what happens at the end of the game is as soon as all of the asteroids are fully mined, you get this game over screen, which has the total game time that you spent, the total ore that you mined, the final cash you were holding, the amount of unsold ore that was sitting in your depots when the last bit of ore was pulled from asteroids, your total equipment value, which is basically all of your ships and depots depreciated by 10% of their purchase price. So if you spent $20,000 on buying ships, or I should say if you had $20,000 worth of ships when the game ended, then this equipment value would be 90% of that. So that would be 20,000 minus 2,000. So it would say $18,000. Then you see points. Oh, let me zoom in here. Points are just the sum of, let's see. I think it's the sum of these three numbers. This is about 18,000. Actually, I'm not sure. That's interesting. I'll have to look back at the code to see how these sum up. Oh, no, I'm doing that math wrong. Okay, hold on. Let me go over to my calculator. I can't do mental math. It's been a long day. So the points should just be a sum of a few things, I think. So total cash, 12,300, plus unsold ore, which is 20. Plus, nope, that's wrong. I hit the wrong number. Clear. 12,300 plus 20 plus 16,020 equals, oh yeah, okay, 28,340. So these points right here, is just the sum of these three numbers. And then the points per minute. Now, this is a previous game because the one I was showing you, unfortunately, crashed. But this is the number of points, 28,340, divided by basically 58.5 minutes. So 483. So this is the three ways to play that I was talking about. If you're playing to mine all of those asteroids as quickly as you absolutely can, then what you're trying to do is minimize the game time until you get to the game over screen. The amount of ore that you mine really is going to be based on the total number of asteroids in a particular level. So although the number of asteroids is the same, you always get, in this level, you always get 250 asteroids exactly. The amount of ore in any given asteroid is randomized. It's a random number between 10 and 15 tons. But across 250 asteroids, you're going to wind up with a number right around 3,000, plus or minus a few tons. So there's nothing you can really do to change this number. It's fixed when you start the level, and it doesn't really vary that much. Equipment value, this could be higher, like if you're a big spender and you're just spending every single dime that you have in order to accelerate your mining. You're going to see this number pretty high if you still have a ton of ships at the end of the game. And then the total points, again, is just a sum of these three things. So if you play economically cheap, then you're going to see a really high game time. you're going to see a good amount of points, right? Because playing cheap means you're trying to maximize your points. So you'll probably get the highest score possible. But you're going to get a really low points per minute. Because in order to play cheaply, you're also going to have to be really slow. If you accelerate this number and mine really, really like as fast as you can, I think you can finish the game in about an hour, sometimes faster if you want to go faster. Then, I haven't thought deeply about what the effect on this points per minute is going to be. It is really just this number of minutes, this number of points divided by this number of minutes. So it's really simple to calculate. But if you play really fast, theoretically you could get a higher points per minute. But what I need to do probably is add some kind of penalty or something, some other thing that, like maybe 10% depreciation on the ships isn't high enough. Maybe it should be 75 or sorry, maybe it should be 25% depreciation or 30 or 40%, I'm not sure. But what we want is for this equipment value, if you really spend all your money and try to go as fast as you can, we want this equipment value to be lower because we don't want to give you as many points for just buying your way to the end of the game. I think that's pretty much all I had to say. So I just wanted to highlight what the game over screen looks like and how that relates to the playing cheaply, playing fast, or playing efficient. Again, one last time I'll just explain this. So playing fast means you're trying to minimize the game time. Playing cheaply means you're trying to maximize the total number of points because you're minimizing the amount of money you had to spend to finish the game. And then points per minute, if you're playing efficiently, you're actually trying to maximize this score. So 483 is not bad. I've only played all the way through beginning to end maybe 4 or 5 times, so I couldn't even really tell you what a good number is here yet because I don't have enough sample data. But that's pretty much it for now. Thanks for watching this video. This has been a playthrough, or at least it was supposed to be a full playthrough of DVMO, Deep Void Mining Operations, beta version 0.9.1. The link to play the game is in the description. You don't need to install anything. This is an HTML5 game, so you just go to the link in your browser and you play it right in your browser. Nothing to install. It just it does take a little while to load because the game has some art assets and music and stuff. So it can take 30 or 60 seconds probably to load. But once it loads, you'll see this screen. You click start and you can play your own game. I'm kind of tempted to play another hour, but I think I'm going to call the end of the video right here. Thanks again for joining me. I'll try to do another one of these videos, I don't know, maybe in a month or two, when there's more features, more UI things to show, more gameplay. Maybe I'll think of another ship or two to build. We'll see. See you next time.